Hello and good morning from a warm and sunny northern Indiana. This is Richard Worsham with our Janus Motorcycles live stream virtual Discovery Day, episode 15 of these. Welcome everybody. We see some people already coming on the chat. We got some people from an unusually chilly Southern California. Jeepman Dan, hello. Lo-fi by nature, not gonna complain about the weather today. Well, neither are we. We will go ahead and get started. I should say, go ahead and say that the world's greatest small YouTube channel host is not sitting next to me today. Grant is on the road. He's on his way back now, but has been working hard to set up some dealerships, and we'll talk a little bit about one of those later in the stream. Next up, though, we're going to look at some customer ride reports and photos. So this is Tom and Shane. They are, looks like, I think it's two 250s. I can't actually tell in the photograph. Yeah, two 250s, and they are at a small grass airfield in this photograph. So a great spot for some halcyons to be. Next up, we're going to shuffle through some pictures here. We'll see these. Oh, you want to do that one now?
Or I can keep going.
Let's do the customer. There we go. This one is David. David, this is, okay, I gotta stop. This bike is beautiful, beautiful color. This is our Indy green, and he has a photograph of this bike off-road with a mountain in the background. It's one of my favorite photographs of a Janus motorcycle. But anyway, this is a photograph of his bike, so always good to see that, and he has some interesting aftermarket handlebars on there as well. Next up, a 50cc. This is Chris with 50cc number 009. So this would be the 9th production Janus motorcycle ever made. Probably built, I want to say 2012, very early in the company's history. Chris is working on a full restoration of this bike, so we're getting requests for parts regularly from him. And he's going to have that thing looking like brand new, although it doesn't look too bad as it is. Okay, next up we have, I believe this is Brad, with a great background in the photograph, with a Charlevoix blue Halcyon, saddle brown leather. What a great look. And do we have any more? Okay, all right. We're going to get to that in a minute. But first, we're going to debut, some of you have already seen our full video of the milk run, but we're going to debut a short milk run video. This is like a 3-minute version cut, talking a little bit about the network that we work with here in Elkhart County and the surrounding vicinity, many Amish shops, and so we're going to debut that right now. So we'll be back shortly. Today we're going to do a ride along on what we call the milk run. Every weekday morning we make a circuit around Elkhart County and dip into a couple of other counties as well, dropping off and picking up different products that go into making a Janus motorcycle. We have a network of local craftsmen who do a lot of different processes that we don't do in-house, from fabricating aluminum fuel tanks to machining to polishing to sandblasting. We can rely on those people who have many, many, many decades of experience doing that to do that process for us as a small manufacturer. In order to not have to store a massive amount of inventory here, we're doing that on a daily basis, moving those products around. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to load all these bins into the back of the van and go to our next stop. For many many components, not all of them, but for many of them, we have a bin system that the bin itself is essentially the order for more. So when an empty bin shows up, our supplier, whether it's us down at TT or one of our Amish vendors or machinists, they'll know that hey, we need more parts. And so that system just kind of keeps itself moving. And it's wonderful because we say it's reflexive, not something that takes a lot of thought. It takes care of itself. Other components, such as our chassis, we use a tag system, and the tag system works in almost the same way. The tag goes along with the part. When the part is used and there's a leftover tag, that's the sign that we need more parts. So we've just pulled up at TT, where we make 450 chassis components and the fenders for both the 450 and the 250 line. What we have right here are 450 forks, both the vertical and horizontal, and main frames. And we're going to load them in the back of the van, and they will head out to first sandblast and then powder coat. All right, so we are now headed west toward Plymouth, Indiana, toward what we call the inner world, which is a joke because most of our vendors, especially when we were first getting started, all of our vendors were out in the Plymouth Napanee area, which is about 20 miles southwest of Goshen. The Amish refer to where we live as the outer world. So we kind of turned that around and we call it going to the inner world when we head out to our Amish suppliers. Our next stop is at our laser cutter. We have been working with them since before we started Janus. When we first started working with them, they had one laser cutter in a garage bay, literally behind their house. And now, well, you'll see it. It's multiple very large pole barns. They do laser cutting, plasma cutting, huge operation. And it's been really incredible to see them grow. Our next stop on the milk route is our fabricator. We have been working with Leroy and his fabrication shop from the very, very beginning. We actually found him when we were making the Paragon, which was our from scratch kind of concept bike. We started that project about 2 years before founding Janus, and we found him because we had heard from our Amish powder coater we were using that he had experience making bicycle frames and actually race car chassis. While he was no longer doing that, he did have experience with kind of like trellis frame designs and tube frames. So that's how we found him, and we basically developed the 50cc and much of the 250 model lines on his shop floor. He would let us go in and work in the corner and develop the tooling and the prototypes, and then gradually put that in production. At this point, his shop makes all the 250 chassis components, some of the 450 chassis components, and all the aluminum bodywork, airboxes, fuel tanks for the 250 and 450 model line. Because we make this milk run, and because the Amish don't drive, we typically do a lot of deliveries for our vendors as well. We just kind of throw their stuff in the back. So that's what we just did at our laser cutter. They had a box. Sometimes it's a pallet for the fabricator, and we're making the trip anyway. We drop those parts off as well. We consider everybody a partner and a friend, and that's just part of the milk run. So this is a bin right here that is being dropped off. So this will be signaling that we need more of this part. So essentially, the purchase order for this component is this bin that I'm dropping off right now. Right here will be any product that is ready for us. In this case, we have 450 oil tanks, a beautiful aluminum part, all with both laser cut and machine components, all welded together, and the rear wheel will fit right in there. We have a batch of those in here. The next stop for these components will be at our powder coater. Our next stop is our leather maker. Mark is his name, another Amish fella. Mark has been making our leather products for the Janus line from the very beginning. He makes all of our wax canvas and leather goods as well. The rucksacks and messenger bags and tool rolls that we actually launched the 250 line with on Kickstarter. And he lives on a gravel road. Usually the gravel roads out here are in better shape than the asphalt roads. Next up is polishing and sandblast. They're actually across the street from each other. Glenn and Sam both work at our fabrication shop, but they have side gigs that they do polishing for us and sandblasting. So we'll stop in there next. So we're here in Glenn's shop, who does all of our polishing. And it looks like he has one 250 polished exhaust ready for us. That's what you see right here. And then these are raw exhausts that we've dropped off at some point in the last week that he has not polished yet. So we just pick these up. This is on the tag system. We just pick these up when they're ready to go, and we drop off more when they're ready to be picked up. We'll pick up this polished one and bring that back to the shop. Now we're essentially going to go right across the road to Sam's Sandblast, where we will be dropping off some 450 chassis for sandblast, as well as some machine parts that need powder coat, that will be powder coated, so they need to be sandblasted first. Our next stop will be at powder coat. So we've just picked up some freshly sandblasted chain guards for 450s, and we have a lot of other parts in the back that are headed for powder coat, where all the chassis components on both 250 and 450 get powder coated black, and then the primary color parts, so that would be fuel tanks, air boxes, and fenders, headlight buckets, get powder coated whatever color the customer chooses from our options. Next stop on our milk route is our machine shop, which is located in New Paris, which is about 5 miles south of Goshen. Don is our machinist. He runs that little shop and specializes in really fine, high detail machining, which can be anything from the carburetor parts for our 250 line to all of our axles and swing arm pivots, the fork top plates, and a multitude of other both lathe turned and 3-axis CNC milled components. So we're gonna go down there and pick up some components and head back into Goshen. And we'll take a quick look at them because they're always so fascinating to see. And this doesn't disappoint. These are going to be pivot bushings. So these are for your front forks. Oh, we have axle spacers. So these are these go on the 450 as well. And this is an aluminum component, which Don machines, and then he sends it out to a anodizer. I believe they're in South Bend. All right, next stop is back at HQ in downtown Goshen. We've made the full circuit into the inner world to all our different vendors. Today, we only have a couple of items that we're bringing back. That can vary. Sometimes it's a fork load, 2 pallets of items coming back. It's about noon now. We left at about 9:30, about a 50-mile circuit, and the parts are in for today. And then tomorrow, the same thing's going to happen, the same route. More parts are going to get moved around from one shop to the next, out there, back here. So that's how all of our local components make it around the county and end up on your Janus. All right, folks, welcome back. We loaded up the long version of the video, so you got the full treatment. Anyway, we're going to move on now. Oh, and before I do move on, we got Ryan in the back here.
Hello.
Hey, Ryan. We're literally in the middle of the assembly bay while assembly is going on. So Ryan's building a, what are you working on now? 450 number 165. He's kind of down behind a blue 250. I can tell it's blue because the headlight bucket. It hasn't been fully assembled yet. So anyway, yeah, we're right in the midst of things. Now we're going to move on to some news and updates. I mentioned dealerships. Grant, as we can see from the comment stream, is on his way back. He's almost at Joplin, Missouri, on his way back here. But he was in St. Louis a couple of days ago and stopped at our newest dealership, Moto Europa in St. Louis. Moto Europa is a incredible, it's not just a dealership. Let's just say that. Moto Europa is a dealer for Ducati, KTM, Piaggio, Triumph, Vespa, and Janus motorcycles. They also have a large inventory of used machines from a variety of supplier or OEMs, and it's actually called the Moto Europa, the Moto Complex, because they have a dealership. I'm going to have to look at my notes here because of all the things. A museum, a restaurant, and a hotel, all in this complex. The museum, this is just a photograph that Grant took while he was out there. They have over 100 European pre-war motorcycles. And this is just a selection of them. Incredible place to visit. You can get a meal, spend the night, go to a motorcycle museum, and buy a Janus, all at the same place. So they currently have a Halcyon 250, which we just showed the image of, and we hope to have more inventory there in the near future. Do check them out if you're in St. Louis. Okay, let's see. Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. The Distinguished Gentleman's Ride we've talked about on the last live stream, but I'll just give you a quick brief on that and an update on where we stand. The Distinguished Gentleman's Ride has been going on for many years now, and it is a wonderful event where you get to dress up on your motorcycle. They recommend vintage or classic motorcycles, and so as I say, the Janus model line is the perfect motorcycle for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. It is sponsored primarily by Triumph, but our bikes fit the bill way better, even than a Bonneville. It's going to be occurring on May 21st, and you can sign up online. Just look up Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and you can sign up with an account and start raising funds for the worthy cause of men's health, men's mental health, and prostate cancer research. It's a great cause. It is open to, it's called the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, but it is open to men and women all over the world. And this ride will be happening in major cities around the world. It was founded in Australia, and it is spread to, it's going to be happening in Milan and Tokyo, everywhere. Chicago is the one that we usually attend, or we have in the past. And we're actually going to be participating and hosting or co-hosting the South Bend, Indiana Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. This year, the ride will begin in Granger. If you go to our website, we have a blog post, might be the most recent one, next to most recent blog post with all the details on where it starts, the address, times, etc. But then it will end here at Janus Motorcycles at our HQ, and we'll be open, giving tours, etc. for that. So that's the update. The last thing I'll say is that there is a Janus Motorcycles team for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, which just means that no matter where you're riding, we can pool all of the funds that we've raised under the Janus umbrella. And we have, I think at this point, like close to 20 riders. And as of today, we just broke $2,000 that we've raised for this worthy cause. So really blown away. Our original goal was $1,000, and we've doubled it, and I think we're going to do quite a bit more. So if you haven't yet, go check out the DGR, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride page, sign up, join the Janus team, and help us contribute. Okay, next up we have, we mentioned last time that Kyle, our assembly hand, salesman, and delivery driver, was out on a big West Coast delivery trip. He has just returned as of yesterday and had some great stories to tell us about his adventures, including losing a trailer wheel somewhere out west and getting stuck. What else did he do? Delivered a lot of bikes, met a lot of people, hosted a cars and coffee kind of a event in Scottsdale, Arizona, and also went and delivered a motorcycle to the Biltwell 100 Desert Race. And we mentioned that that was going to be happening last time, and I've got a little ride report from that. It went really, really well. Kyle Depwig was the rider. We've got a picture of him here. Look at this guy on his Griffin, all geared up and ready to go. And apparently, Kyle is also quite a good rider because he placed 4th in the misfit category against some quite a bit of more competent, or what you'd think would be more specialized equipment. So I'm going to we've posted some more of this, but I'm going to just read a little bit of his report on it. He got a really good start, but he says, making ground up toward the front of the pack after being in the lead. Around mile marker 4, I broke off my right side peg, and an unsuspecting large whoop appeared out of nowhere. I bottomed up and stepped through the leg to the ground, holding on like a bucking bronco. Didn't go down. Then I realized I had nowhere to put my right foot except the rear brake. Determined to finish the race, I continued on. I started to slow down, not being able to attack the course as I wanted to with both feet. He helped some folks out, and then my favorite part, all of our favorite part here at the shop, was there was an uphill section, rocky steep, with around 6 riders at the bottom, determining how they were going to approach. A few actual dirt bikes stuck on the climb, and a few Triumphs at the bottom. I asked everyone if I could go, and the Janus walked up and passed every stuck bike on the hill until I disappeared over the other side. Speeds of around 45 miles an hour on the straights, still one-footed. He ended up finishing 4th in class, one-footed, for 21 miles, and he missed the podium by 12 minutes. Well done, Kyle, and yeah, really proving the Griffin is a little desert racer.
You can mention we have some riding footage will be put together here.
Oh yeah, and we do have riding footage of the of that Biltwell race, and we will be posting that up soon as we edit it. So that was exciting. Okay, next up, Charlie and Brent went on a camping trip this last weekend, yeah. They took 2 450s and went up camping along Lake Michigan at one of the state parks. Charlie decided to pack a cast iron Dutch oven on the back of the luggage rack. So testing is underway, but yeah, it went really well. They slept out, didn't take tents, slept out by a fire, and we just released a video of that, but 2 days ago. So check out our YouTube channel. It's the most recent one up there. They had a lot of fun and have lots of stories to tell. Upcoming events well, before we go to upcoming events, I was going to talk a little bit about one piece of equipment here at the shop. We'll take a little brief break and look at the 450 and 250 Halcyon fuel tank. So we'll take a minute there.
If there are any comments we want to
Yeah.
check in on real quick.
We're going to look at some comments here. Let's see. I don't know where's Hannah?
The Cali toll lanes are 80 miles an hour average and up. Can the 450 tolerate this?
The question is, California toll lanes are 80 miles per hour average and up. Can your 450 tolerate this? Thanks. Yes, the 450 is designed to go in excess of 80 miles an hour. But 90 miles an hour is the top speed on the 450. So you're going to be wound out at 85 miles an hour. It's fine. The engine's designed for that. Absolutely. I've ridden from. I've put a solid 100 miles on a bike at 80 miles an hour, and it's fast. So it will do that. You know, obviously our bikes are not highway design machines. They're not designed to bypass all the scenery like the highway does. They're designed to engage with the scenery. So that typically is going to be 2-lane roads and places where you're out to enjoy the road rather than trying to get to the next destination. But the whole point of one of the main points of the 450 is to allow you to be able to get on the highway and do exactly that. We have any other questions you can see here?
Hannah says, I think that was the only question so far.
Only question so far. So by the way, if you have any questions at all, comments, stories, post them up in the comments, and we'd love to address those.
We just had one roll in.
We had one. Stephen Galarza says, why did we get away from Kickstarters on the 450? It's cool and practical and in tune with Janus. Can it be added? Unfortunately, the kickstart is not an option. You know, it's always a compromise when you're trying to find the perfect fit. And while the 450 is a fantastic option in terms of all the different criteria we were looking at, which would include the aesthetics, the exact power, the reliability, the parts availability. However, it does not come with a kickstart. That said, I will add that one of the bikes that influences everything we do in a kind of weird way is the Kawasaki KLR, my favorite workhorse, ugly, bulletproof bike, and it does not have a kickstart. And there's almost never an issue with that because as long as you have your battery charged up, it's not going to be a major issue. So I've never had an issue with it, and it's an idea that's been proven out for 30 years now that you can get away with it. So, right.
How many miles per gallon is the 450?
Miles per gallon is another question on the 450. A little bit less than the 250. The 250's quoted, the EPA rating was 77 miles per gallon. Typically in practice, owners are reporting about 60 miles to the gallon. The 450, I think was quoted at about 10 miles less than that. So you're probably going to see around 50, 55 miles per gallon on the 450. It all depends on how you ride the bike. If you're riding around at 45 miles an hour and not goosing the throttle, you're probably going to get way better than that. But if you ride like me, you won't. Any other questions before we move on? Let's see. Seth Mark, who has been part of my little ramble streams, he's a machinist. He says he picked up 831 Tuesday, knocked down 150 miles so far. Pretty darn pleased. Definitely not riding incognito. Fantastic. Paul Anderson asks, have you thought of making a fat tire bike like a tote goat or a monkey with the 250 CG motor, going into the genre and making the biggest bike rather than the smallest? That's a really good point. We have not really thought about that, but that would be a great idea. It would also be kind of fun to have like a Janus pit bike or something. I've always thought that would be a neat idea. All right. Jordan, would you hand me that 450 tank?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to talk a little bit about is one of the pieces of the Janus motorcycle line that I think really defines the aesthetics, and it also kind of captures the way we do things here. So this is the fuel tank that this one actually is a 450, however, it's going to look exactly the same as a 250 tank, and it's also going to look exactly the same as a 50cc Halcyon tank. The inspiration for this tank goes back to kind of flat tank, what they call flat tank designs from the 19-teens, as early as that. Brough Superior, what else? Definitely some Brough in there, some Zenith, some early Triumph tanks, and our goal was making a long, low fuel tank. And we actually started it, we'll take a look at these in a minute. We started it in steel, and for a variety of reasons realized that steel was not going to be the best option. It was, by the time you get all this put together, the way that we do it, it was weighing over 20 pounds in steel. So that's one reason to move to aluminum, which is this is a aluminum fuel tank, like all the great classic race tanks from the mid-century. But the aluminum also is lighter. It also dissipates heat more quickly. So there's a lot of welding that goes into this tank. These are very, very, very labor intensive. It's made out of, let's see, how many parts, if I can remember. We got one part on the bottom that gets folded up to the back. We have one part on the top that gets folded around the sides. And then we have one part on the front. So 1, 2, 3 parts. It used to be more than that. That's 4 sheet metal parts. Then there's the machined filler neck here. Beautiful 6061 aluminum machined that extends down into the tank. And if we flip it over, this is how you're going to tell the difference between a 450 and a 250 tank. The 250 tank has what we call a petcock, which is just basically a valve that you open and the fuel comes out, and you close it, it stops. Gravity fed to the carburetor. Since the 450 is fuel injected, it uses a fuel pump. So the fuel pump actually extends up into the tank here, and has a little motor that pumps that, pressurizes that fuel to go into the fuel injector. So that's what goes there. And then over here, because on a 250, the carbureted version, you have what's called a reserve. So it's not just on and off on the petcock. Then it has a reserve function, which basically it lets you run out of gas a little bit before you actually are running out of gas, so that you have a little bit to limp to the next stop, because there's no fuel gauge. So when we went to the 450, we realized that it was going to just run until it was empty and there would be no warning. So we do have on the 450, that's what this little bung right here is a fuel level gauge. And it's not, in the spirit of Janus, it is not going to tell you exactly how much gas you have. It's minimal, but when you have about 15 miles left, which is about when the reserve cuts on or off, a red light will illuminate on your speedometer face. And that's just a little float gauge that goes up and down and installs there. Other differences are that this tank, unlike the 250, which is bolted down front and back, this one has kind of a more standard and modern motorcycle system where it clips in to two rubber biscuits, basically, that isolate the front, and then it's bolted down with two bolts at the back. Pretty easy compared to the 250 to take this tank off. So a lot of development and learning has gone into that, and we're very pleased with it. Last thing I'll say before we go look at, well, let's go look at some tanks on the wall at this point, and I'll tell the story of how we came up with this. All right. So behind me up here on the wall, I love showing this. We have kind of the history of the Janus Halcyon fuel tank in metal, so and wood. At the very far left is a wooden, it's a maple, what we call a buck, which was, originally it was actually two-sided, and it was the shape of the fuel tank. And that's actually the same conical shape as the side of the fuel tank. And we would hand hammer the steel around that wooden form, or buck. And then you can see that there was some welding done on there as well, tack welding, because that's where it got burned. But these first ones are examples of the steel fuel tanks, including all the way over here. The third tank over has the oil, because these would have been two strokes at the time. We were experimenting with having the oil tank in the front of the fuel tank. But very quickly we realized that they were deforming because of all that heat, like I mentioned. And we moved to aluminum, and Leroy, who's the Amish guy who runs the fabrication shop, suggested he's like, well, have you thought about putting a V-brake in the top of the fuel tank? And that will, it's sort of like if you've ever seen HVAC ducts, heating ducts, they have that cross pattern on them, like this. It creates a rigidity in the sheet metal, and that's exactly what that does. But we were walking through his shop. He also makes like a lot of heavy brush mowers and log splitters and stuff. And we saw this brush mower, and it had this cowling along the top with this V down the top. And we were like, Leroy, did you get that idea off of your brush mower? Yep. So one of the most iconic kind of, I believe, hallmarks of the Halcyon is the fuel tank, and that kind of distinctive V shape on the tank actually comes from a very humble origin, shall we say. Anyway, to move along, the tank kept progressing. We moved away from hand hammering it to using a stamp in a press. And basically, that's essentially the same design that we still use on the 450. You can see down at the very far end the Phoenix tank, which is a little different, based on a sort of 1960s Dunstall aluminum GP tanks. And the last one down there, that green one, is a Griffin tank with a little tail on the end that allows it to be, even though it's a shorter tank, it allows it to be mounted on the same mounts for the 250 frame. So that's the 250 tank, or the Janus fuel tank story. Do we have any more questions?
This looks good right now.
Can we make there was a question that's, can we make a 4-gallon tank? We could. I don't know what it would look like at this point. It would probably be pretty, it's pretty big. So we could do that. It would require a major redesign. What I always do when I'm riding is I take either a fuel bottle. If it's a longer ride, I'll take a fuel bottle and stick it in the saddlebag. Or if it's a really long ride, like when we rode cross country, I used a roto pack. Or you can use a gas can on the back. But I used a roto pack system, which you can stack as many as you want. And they're 1 or 2 gallon tanks of fuel. And you have the extra fuel along with you.
Okay,
So.
did you initially anticipate establishing a motorcycle manufacturing company? It seems like it has grown exponentially past some of the historical interviews and articles I've read.
Oh, Seth says, I'm going to rephrase the question. Did you initially anticipate establishing a motorcycle manufacturing company? It seems like it has grown exponentially past some of the historical interviews and articles I've read. That's a long story. How do I answer that? No. My background is in architecture, and the same year that I graduated, let's just say, how about this? The same year I graduated with a degree in architecture, we founded Janus Motorcycles. So that's about as much planning ahead of time. But you're right, it has grown exponentially, and it actually, in retrospect, makes a lot of sense with the interests that we all have, and it's kind of a culmination of a lot of passion and love of not only motorcycles, but of design, history, and handcraft. And it fits right into the culture here of Elkhart County, which is based around a lot of that stuff.
What was the reason we no longer make the Phoenix?
What was the reason we no longer make the Phoenix? The reason we no longer make the Phoenix is that, it's a kind of, when we first started Janus, we thought we were going to launch a cafe racer. And thank goodness we didn't, because the hardtail Halcyon that we kind of got sidetracked on proved to be our best seller by a factor of over 10. We've sold, this year we will sell our 1,000th Halcyon 250. We last year built the 79th Phoenix 250, and it just was not worth maintaining the inventory. We just were not selling any of them. So who knows, it may rise from the ashes in a new way in the future, but that's the reason we don't continue it.
Mark was wondering if you've ever experimented with a cafe version of the Halcyon 250.
Mark Zweig, have you ever experimented with a cafe version of a Halcyon 250? Flip the bars upside down, reverse the shifter, and make a new rear brake lever, and one could use the passenger pegs as rear sets. We have not, but that's a fantastic idea. I like that. A cafe, that would really be breaking new ground, and I think it would be a really unique look and fit the Janus. We don't do things the way everybody else does it. All right. Well, I think we're caught up on most of our questions so far. We're going upcoming events. I've been doing what I've called the Ramble Stream, which is a Sunday evening live stream where I do everything from reading poetry to designing motorcycle parts to talking about who knows what else. Rambling is what it is. However, there will be no Ramble Stream this Sunday or the following one. We'll come back in a little over 3 weeks for that. I'll be on the road, going to, first up next week, next week, a Google event in Washington, D.C. Some of you may remember, I don't even remember how many years ago it was, we participated, Google came to us. They did a video called, through this project called Grow with Google, focusing on small businesses that use Google products like we do, like you're watching on right and we had a great time. They produced a wonderful video for us, got us a lot of attention. And this is kind of a follow-up on that. We're going to be meeting with a lot of the same businesses that participated before, so I'm looking forward to meeting everybody again and visiting Washington, D.C. After that, we have another event we're going to be participating in, our software, design software we use, Onshape. The parent company is holding a conference in Boston next month, and we will actually be presenting there. We're bringing a bike, and it will be a lot of fun. Get to talk about how Janus uses this software and how it's been able to allow us as a small company to do big company things. We have a Discovery Day coming up. April 22nd, we have a actual in-person Discovery Day here. I'm not sure how many slots we filled, but please, if you're interested, if you're in the area, if you're not in the area, if you want to visit, I promise it looks really fun, and the shop photographs well usually, but it is so much nicer to be here in person. We love to be able to shake your hand, answer your questions in person, and give you a tour. Kelly will do pinstriping demonstrations. We'll do all kinds of fun things like that. We take you out to, we have coffee, and we go over and grab a beer and food. It's a lot of fun. And I'm going to take on the salesman role now that Grant is not here. I will say that we have some awesome specials going on right now on our motorcycles. Right now, you can get $450 off of your 450. So that's a great deal right there. And also, $250 off your 250. So it's springtime. As Grant always says, it gets, once the weather gets warm, our wait list just exponentially increases in length. So now is a good time to place an order. Our lead times, Hannah, what are our lead times?
450 lead time is about 6-ish weeks.
450 lead time is about 6 weeks, so perfect for summer riding. If you place a deposit today, around 6 weeks until it's ready to be picked up or delivered. And
250 is 6 to 9 weeks.
6 to 9 weeks on 250s right now. So we have a good wait list right now on those. But again, it's great for summer riding. Get your name on the list. Pick out all your colors. Talk to Mitch or Hannah. What we do here is something that's different from all other manufacturers. Can I say that? Yes. No one else does this. You get to call us up and specify everything from the color to the finish to what kind of, you can have your own logo on the fuel cap. We really love to work with you to make your Janus your own bike. We have custom colors. We have an incredible orange bike sitting back in the shop right now to custom color. Give us a call and we will work with you on what can be possible for your Janus. Do we have anything else to cover? Any more questions?
Do the Amish ever see or are interested in the final product?
Do the Amish ever see or are they interested in the final product? Yes, they do. They love it. We periodically will have an event out there, and although they are not supposed to, there have been Amish guys riding Janus. It doesn't happen very often, but and we don't get it on video. But yes, they're very proud of it. It's always fun, especially with some of the people that make just like little bits for the Janus line, like our laser cutter. They're cutting the metal that makes the tanks and the frames, and they work with these parts every day. And then for them to see the bike, they're always just like, oh, there, we made that part. Oh, we made that part. Oh, and then so it's kind of neat to see it all come together. It's really, it makes us really proud to work with them.
Do we have any West Coast events planned?
Do we have any West Coast events? At the moment, I could be wrong, but I do not believe. Oh wait, no, we have the West Coast Bike Week, which is happening, and I don't have the date off the top of my head. It's July. It's at Laguna Seca, Monterey, California, and I think we're doing that. And there's an event, super moto. I'm ill prepared for this, but yes, we will have information on that. Actually, we'll post it in the comments. Can we do that? Look up the West Coast Bike Week and we will be there for that. Check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
How often do we make new inventory bikes? I see they've been going fast.
How often do we make new inventory bikes? We make them kind of as we're able. So if you see one come up, nab it, because we don't have a regular schedule for it. Basically what we do is if we can squeeze one in, we will. But we have a lot of bikes that we're building that already have someone's name on them, and we don't want to delay the delivery of those. So when we are able to, we will work them in. That's about all I can say Grab them, nab them when they're there.
Laguna is the weekend of July 14th.
Paul Anderson, thank you very much. Laguna Seca, July 14th weekend. Yes, I believe that is the West Coast Bike Week, and we'll be there. I think there's a week-long period where we'll be there. Any other? Grant Longenbach, it says quicker to build, to do a build to order at this point than a inventory build, which he's right. At this point, because we are building, we always prioritize you all that order the bikes. It's quicker at this point to just get the one that you want the way you want it, with a discount. $450 off of your $450 or $250 off of your $250. Act now. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's always fun to give people a tour. We will be back in 2 weeks with is it in-person only? Well, once again, I'm ill-prepared. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We will see you all next time.